Our next panel discussion is about the establishment of an Arab rating agency to assess the investment climate in the Arab region, taking into account the specificity of the region. I call the moderator, Mrs. Zuhur Jum'a, research analyst, UN Business News reporter, Bloomberg Al-Sharq, UAE. I call also speakers, Dr. Adnan Ahmed Youssef, Chairman, Bahrain Association of Banks, Mr. Richard Mikhail, founder and CEO, ProPlus UAE and France. Mr. Tariq Al-Ghazali, Regional General Manager, National Bank of Egypt. Mr. Sankar Chakraborty, CEO, Acute Rating and Research Limited.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So this session will tackle the establishment of an Arab rating agency, the feasibility of establishing an Arab rating agency. As we all know that the credit rating agency today is highly concentrated. The big three player, S&P, Fitch, Moody's, control over like 92% of the credit rating market. These credit rating agencies were accused of being biased sometimes, whether in the 90s with the Asian financial crisis or with the bankruptcy of Enron in 2000 or 2001, and recently in the financial crisis, in the 2008 financial crisis. And these fears and criticism re-emerged again with the outbreak of COVID, with the fear of recession worldwide, and with the economic shocks. So first, let me ask our speakers to introduce themselves. Go ahead, please.
Well, my name is Adnan Ahmed Youssef. I'm the chairman of Bahrain Bankers Association, and I used to spend my 43 years of experience in the banking, regional as well as internationally, both traditional banks as well as Islamic banks.
Yes, hi, I'm Richard Michael. I would qualify myself as a technologist with focus on identity management. Okay. I'm the CEO, founder and CEO of ProPulse, which deals with technology in cybersecurity, privacy, and biometrics based on AI.
My name is Tariq Al-Ghazali. I am Regional General Manager, National Bank of Egypt. I am in National Bank of Egypt 37 years, 20 years in Egypt in the investment sector and visibility study and FDI, and another 16 years here in Dubai as a regional manager to encourage the investors to invest in Egypt and strengthen the relationship with the businessman and financial institutions, etc.
I think we're missing Mr. Sankar to talk about the Indian experience. Okay, Dr. Adnan, let me start with you. You were actually the first one who proposed to establish an Arab rating agency back in 2011. And actually the first financial company that was rated in 98, I guess, was in Bahrain. So what drove you to actually propose to establish a regional rating agency in 2011? What was the motivation behind it? What is the gap in the Arab market, let's say?
The first bank rated in the Arab world, it was Arab Banking Corporation, ABC. I spent 20 years in ABC and 20 years in Al Baraka. And at that time, Bahrain was not rated. Normally, the rating agencies, they don't rate banks unless the country is rated. But at that time, Mr. Abdullah Saudi, who is one of the famous bankers in the Arab world, has convinced the rating agencies, Standard & Poor, to rate ABC without having Bahrain rated. And he gave them an example saying that Hong Kong Shanghai, which is not right now it's called HSBC, was rated in Hong Kong as does not exist as a country. So therefore, they accept the argument and they rate ABC for 1 year or maybe or 2 years. It was 89, not 98. It was 89. And we got at that time, ABC got about a very good rating. It was A minus. A minus, it means Chase Manhattan, Manihani, chemical banks, JP Morgan, all of these American banks, they were rated A minus. Why I consider the establishing rating agencies, I felt when I joined to ABC, Al Baraka ABG, I felt that we don't have a very good rating company which they understand the concept of Islamic banking and the region. And I wrote certain articles stating that we need to have rating agencies which give you which understand exactly the areas and which can draft methodologies which can accepted in our countries. Most of the rating agencies, international rating agencies, they have their own methodologies, and it is good. I mean, there is nothing wrong with it, but it is applied for their country. It is not applied for our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Richard, if you want to talk about the financial technology level, what do you think are the main factors, let's say technology factors, that would help corporations in the Arab region to improve their rating by big rating agencies? We're not talking about regional agencies. So how can fintech or how can they leverage on financial technology to improve their ratings?
Okay, you mentioned something very interesting in your opening keynote. You spoke about 2008. Since long time, rating agencies existed in the world, okay? But they used to rate every 3 months or every 6 months. I think the idea of creating a rating agency for the Middle East, taking into factor the specificity of the region, being done instantaneously based on technology. Today you have AI, you have machine learning, you have natural language processing. So these technologies today allows you to have something, I would say, almost instantaneous. Myself, as an individual or as an SME, would love to have this being done instantaneously so that a bank can give me whatever financial request that I have. So I'd say the technology is there, and there have been a lot of benchmarks between what the technology could provide and what would all these methodologies would do. The accuracy is almost the same, but it's the time. Okay, today, the only thing that you cannot buy is time. Okay, but every second costs you money. So, again, what is the purpose and the objectives of having this regional rating agency is to serve the region, the SMEs, the institutions, to have it instantaneously in a fair way.
Thank you so much. My next question goes to Mr. Tariq. بال 2022 الهيد اوف كابيتال ماركت اوثوريتي بمصر قرر انه يعني اخذ قرار انه يعملوا مش سامع اعلى من هيك. اوكي بال 2022 الربا اوكي هيك احسن هيك اوكي بال 2022 الهيد اوف كابيتال ماركت اوثوريتي بمصر اعلن انه بدهم يعملوا دوميستيك ريتنج ايجنسي اللي هي وكاله تصنيف ائتمانيه بمصر خاصه بمصر. شو كانت الجاب بالماركت او ليه في حاجه بمصر انه يكون في وكاله ائتمانيه مصريه؟ نحن بنعرف انه مصر هي بيج بلاير بالانترناشونال بوند ماركت، بس بنفس الوقت العالم العربي ما في issuance and usage of derivatives أو complicated financial instruments اللي بنسميها الأدوات المالية المعقدة. فشو برأيك كان الدافع أو الجاب بالماركت اللي خلت مصر دونا عن غيرها من البلدان العربية تكون أول بلد بياخد هالقرار بال 2022؟
هاي ده سؤال مهم جدا. احنا عندنا في مصر عندنا في مصر في شركتين حاليا، شركة مؤسسة بالفعل في شركه ثانيه مع مجموعه مؤسسين بيحاولوا ان هم ياسسوها. وهيئه الرقابه الماليه عندنا في مصر بدات تيسر في موضوع الشروط، كان لازم شريك اجنبي ولازم يكون في حد من ذوي الخبره، فبداوا يشيلوا الشرط ده وحطوا شروط ثانيه طبعا. بس اسمحي لي حضرتك قبل ما اتكلم عن موضوع التقييم، يعني هو في اصوات كثيره جدا عايزين يعملوا شركات تقييم افريقيه وشركات تقييم عربيه، واحنا عارفين حضرتك ان شركات التقييم دي يعني في 3 شركات معروفين على مستوى العالم اللي هي موديز وفيتش وستاندرد اند شارتر، ويمكن موديز اقدم واحده فيهم من 1890 تقريبا، والموديز وستاندرد اند شارتر دول امريكيتين. المشكله حضرتك ان احنا لو عملنا شركه عربيه او شركه ريتنج عربيه او افريقيه، هل مدى مصداقيتها في المؤسسات الدوليه ان هي تاخد بالتقرير بتاعها؟ المؤسسات الدوليه الحقيقه بتعتمد على كذا معيار لتقييم الدوله، اعتقد المعايير دي مش هتبقى مختلفه حتى لو عملنا مؤسسه تمويل تصنيف ائتماني مصريه او عربيه، مش هتبقى مختلفه عن هذه المعايير. المعايير طبعا معروفه لنا كلنا، لو سمحتي لي حضرتك ان انا اتكلم عنها، اللي هي المعيار الاستقرار السياسي، لان ده بينعكس على الاستقرار الاجتماعي وبالتالي القدره على توليد الدخل. في بعد كده حضرتك الاستقرار الاقتصادي او العوامل الاقتصاديه في علاقات الدول مع الدول الصديقه اللي بتدعم الدول. احنا شفنا الفتره الاخيره في دول منها مصر طبعا اتخفضت يعني التصنيف الائتماني بتاعها. انا شايف حضرتك ان ده يعني بيعمل بلبله في السوق، يعني هو المفروض بالتصنيف الائتماني هو معروف مدى قدره الدوله على سداد التزاماتها الماليه. احنا لو اتكلمنا عن مصر، احنا عندنا بعض التحديات، مش هنسمي مشاكل، عندنا تحديات في العجز الخارجي، وعشان كده بنلجا لصندوق النقد الدولي وبنلجا لبعض المؤسسات الدوليه. وده كل ما بيزيد او ما بينخفض التخفيض الائتماني بنلجا، الدول بتلجا فعلا للدول لصناديق المؤسسات الدوليه عشان تمولها. فاللي انا عايز اقوله لحضرتك ان التصنيف ده قد يكون مجحف في بعض الاحيان. يعني احنا عندنا في مصر الحكومه اعلنت ان احنا عمرنا هنتخلف عن سداد الديون، ومع ذلك ان اعتمدت التقرير الاخير لموديز ان عشان تحرير سعر الصرف لم يتم حتى الان بالمعنى المفهوم، فده ممكن ياثر على تقييم الدوله. احنا تقييمنا دلوقتي دبل بي، وده ممكن مع نظره يعني مستقبليه سلبيه، ده ممكن يدخلنا في مرحله اللي هي المرحله القاطره. ولكن حتى الان احنا زي ما حضرتك عارفه التصنيفات في تريبل اي وتريبل بي، دول طبعا الدول المتقدمه، وفي عندنا اللي هو دبل بي ثم البي وبعدين سي وتريبل سي. ففي دول اخفقت فعلا زي تونس وزي لبنان. الحمد لله مصر ما زالت حتى الان في مرحله كويسه جدا، واعتقد ان المراجعه دي لازم تتم على فترات قصيره وليست على فترات بعيده، يعني 6 شهور او سنه او 24 شهر، دي فترات طويله جدا المفروض ان هي بيحصل فيها متغيرات بتنعكس ايجابيا او على الاقتصاد. فاحنا منتظرين في خلال ان شاء الله قبل نهايه السنه دي في تدفقات نقديه يعني اجنبيه هتدخل مصر، وده هيأثر كثير جدا على وضعها في الميزان العجز الخارجي. بالاضافه ان عندنا في تطور رهيب جدا حصل في ايرادات بعض الايرادات السياديه زي قناه السويس والسياحه، ومنتظر ان الصادرات تزيد. فاعتقد كل العوامل ديت ممكن تساعد مصر ان شاء الله ان هي تبقى في وضع احسن. لكن انشاء مؤسسه انا بعتبره من وجهه نظري ده هو فيه موجود والسعوديه عندها، لكن مدى مصداقيتها قدام مؤسسات النقد الدولي، هي هتاخد بالتقرير ده ولا مش هتاخد التقرير ده؟ هو ده المهم في الموضوع. انا شايف ان لازم يكون المؤسسات دي في ريجوليتور او لازم يكون في جهه رقابيه محايده تشوف التقارير اللي بتطلع دي هل فعلا اخذت كل المعلومات صحيحه ولا في معلومات ناقصه. هو ده الافضل من انشاء مؤسسه عربيه او انشاء مؤسسه افريقيه.
Okay, excellent transition to my next question. بتحبوا كفي بالعربي او بالانجلش؟ اللي بتفرق؟
مفيش مادة.
اوكي الاثنين اوكي. ما هيك كنت عم بقرا ريبورت انه من بفتره كوفيد اكثر من 50% من البلدان الافريقيه كانوا داون جريدد، يعني نزل التصنيف الائتماني تبعولهم من وراء كوفيد، وهذا الشيء دفع الاتحاد الافريقي لحتى يطلب انه يعملوا وكاله تصنيف ريجنال او اقليميه لكل افريقيا. نفس الارجيومنت استخدموهم انه هن بيلاقوا انه البيج بلايرز بالماركت منهم فير وذي ار بايست، مثل الارجيومنتس اللي عم نحكيها بالايجيبشن ماركت. فهون حابه اسالك انه كيف بتحس الايكونوميك شوكس كوفيد شوك اللي هي ليتست شوك اثرت على الريسك اسسمنت للديفلوبد كونتريز وسبيسيفيكلي العرب ريجن؟ في اوفر استيميتنج للريسك او هلا كمان عم نحكي عن مخاوف الركود 2023، فكيف هود البيج بلايرز عن جد بيقدروا تو ريفلكت الريسك يعني not to over emphasize الريسك investment climate بالعالم العربي.
أنا بخبرك معلومة. أول شيء، ما هو السبب الريتنج؟ وليش البنوك الآن العربية وبالذات الخليجية تأخذ بالريتنج؟ لسبب واحد، لأن هي تقترض بالخارج وتصدر سندات للخارج
يورو بونز.
عدل. فلهذا السبب بدأوا they are asking for the rating. وكذلك البنوك ولا أحجامها كبيرة. They are very big now. Banks in the Gulf. يعني أنا لقلة في سني أنا كنت أشوف البنوك اللي موجودة في الإمارات كان رأس مالها صغير. الآن ما شاء الله تكلمين أنت على بنك أبو ظبي الوطني يعني فوق ال100 بليون دولار. فأنت تحتاج إلى شركة. أنا الشركة تكون في المنطقة العربية ولكن تكون جوينت فينتشر بين بعض الشركات الغربية. لازم هنا كذلك نأخذ خبرتهم ونأخذ كذلك احترامهم للتقرير اللي صادر من الوكالة. في نقطة أظن يعني الناس تنساها. لو تروحين أنت اليابان اليوم في مرة 20 شركة ريتنج ايجنسيز لوكال nobody know them. تروحين في تشاينا they are about 7 rating agencies. فما في مشكلة أن مصر تكون لها ريتنج ايجنسيز، بس هذه الريتنج ايجنسي بيكون داخل الحدود المصرية. تركيا كذلك نفس الشيء. نرد على أفريقيا، 90% من الديون العالمية هي موجودة في الدول الغنية و10% موجودة في الدول الباقية. فبالنسبة لنا بالنسبة لهم احنا كسوق it is not that important. فلهذا السبب أنا أظن إيجاد 3 أشياء في منطقتنا. أول شيء أنا كتبت وحتى وقت ما كنت يعني في دي كتبت بموضوع المدفوعات. بنك في الإمارات يبي يدفع دولار لبنك في البحرين، زين يروح أمريكا ليش؟ يدفع عن طريق مدفوعات داخلية. فالآن صندوق النقد العربي ما شاء الله ما قصر، بدأوا يشتغلون على هذه البرنامج تقريبا شبه محلول. الشيء الثاني الريتنج. الشيء الثالث سويفت كومباني فور ذا عرب وورلد. أي بكرة يصير شيء يقطعون عنه السويفت. هنا كذلك نجلس ما نعرف نتعامل مع البنوك العربية مع بعضها بعض. الحين موجود رئيس الاتحاد. أنا قلت النقطة إن we have to create Swift Arabic Swift system. ما شاء الله اليوم موجودين مع ITs مع ITs. This is the time now to think about it seriously. I go back to Africa. الريتنج ايجنسيز عندها 5 معايير تهتم بها في التقييم. رقم 1 الموضوع السياسي. موضوع الكوفيد ما كان داخل على القائمة. أنا أم شور ناو بيدخلونه، ما بيدخلونه كديزيز أو شيء، لا بيدخلونه مثل أحداث خارجة عن نطاق يعني العادل. ولكن هي 5 ستيبس أو 5 أشياء يهتمون بها. اللي هو أول شيء يهتمون استخدام 5 عوامل تصنيف أساسية، وهي أولاً الفعالية المؤسسية والحكومية، أي استقرار المؤسسات السياسية والشفافية والأمن الخارجي. ثانياً الهيكل الاقتصادي وآفاق نمو أي نصيب الفرد من الناتج المحلي والتنويع الاقتصادي وما إلى ذلك. ثالثاً مجموع النقاط المتعلقة بالوضع الخارجي للبلد، السيولة مثل ما قال الأستاذ طارق، والخارجية والمواقف الخارجية بشكل عام. رابعاً الوضع المالي. احنا كلها ببالنا في التصنيف أن يهتمون بالوضع المالي، لا هم يهتمون بالوضع المالي بس هو رقم 4 ليس رقم 1. فأنا أظن أن الدول الأفريقية بالعكس من حقها أن يكون عندها شركات تصنيف لدولها، لأن هم تقريبا نفس الاقتصاد ونفس الوضعية واقترابهم من الخارج قليل، فهم ما يحتاجون إلى تصنيف دولي. وشكرا.
Thank you. Actually هذا كان الارجيومنت اللي قاله رئيس الاتحاد وباجتماعات الربيع لصندوق النقد الدولي والبنك العالمي، UNDP والأوتشا اثنيناتهم قالوا إنه البيج ريتنج ايجنسيز البايسنس تبعولهم كلفت افريقيا 7.5 مليار دولار بالكوست اوف ذات، يعني لو كانوا نيوترال اوبجكتيف كانوا وفروا على افريقيا 7.5 مليار دولار. فحتى اليونايتد نيشن از accusing البيج ريتنج كومبانيز of being biased towards Africa especially بكوفيد فيز. سو اللي عم بتقوله حضرتك بس just to wrap up الستركتشر لهيدي الريتنج ايجنسي بتشوفها انت جوينت فينتشر منا بيور Arabic او ريجونال، بده يكون بجواتها ناس متخصصين من البيج ريتنج الانترناشونال ليتس سي ريتنج ايجنسيز، هيك بيكون مثل في بارتنرشيب بين to better capture the risk.
انت سوف تتعجبين الان لو تروحين يعني ستاندرد اند بور what we call it Standard & Poor's, Fitch, Moody's, you will find the best people they have for this part of the world, they are Arab. Okay? And well qualified, and they have a very good educations. I believe that الكوادر, I think that we can grab them easily. You will not have any problem with it. كذلك تواجد هذه الشركات معك في الأونرشيب يعطيك برستيج للخارج. وشكرا.
Thank you. Hello. Welcome, Mr. Sankar. If you like to introduce yourself first, and then I will ask you the question.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shankar Chakraborty. I'm the CEO of Equity Ratings from India. It's one of the new age rating agencies. We rate about 9,000 Indian companies, large companies, about 54,000 SMEs. And we also launched our ESG rating product. We rate about 1,100 large Indian conglomerates for their ESG performances.
Actually, Mr. Sankar, we were talking about the criticism against big players in the market, such as S&P, Fitch, and Moody's, how they are sometimes biased. They tend to overestimate the risk, which pushed several countries to establish their own regional or domestic credit rating agency, which is actually the case of India. India has 7 domestic credit rating agencies. One of them is Acute Rating Agency. Can you actually tell us about the Indian experience? What was the motive behind establishing 7 credit rating agency or Acute Rating Agency specifically? What was the gap in the Indian market, and what are the challenges?
Right. So the experience in India has been very, very interesting. The global rating agencies has been operating in India for some time through their subsidiaries. However, you cannot put all the countries fit into one kind of a model. So even when we started doing ESG ratings, we have seen that some of the values of the Western world are being imposed on the Indian companies, and it doesn't work locally. So, you know, what the one size fits all model don't understand is every country is different. Every country has its own unique challenges and unique solutions. Indian government thought that a credit rating is something which is systemically very important, and that's why Government of India backed Equity Ratings to start rating Indian companies. Coming to the discussion I was hearing, I'm sorry I entered a bit late. I was waiting in the other hall, which is Innovation Hall, and somebody told me that the event is going to happen there. But I observed some of the discussions, and I would like to add that from our understanding of sovereign ratings, we can clearly see that the Western values are imposed on the non-Western countries. And there is a lot of scope for subjective judgments particularly on the economic outlook section and institution building section. So there are 4 or 5 broad parameters which is very important other than the numbers. And these two factors, there is a lot of scope for judgment being taken by an analyst. And with that analyst's background, with so much scope for judgmental positions, there is obviously a scope for introduction of biases. So I think it's very clear that probably it's time to come together to develop an alternative system, something which can live up to the needs of the time. And I think quite a few regions are looking forward to it. This is a discussion on Arab countries, BRICS countries, which is India, Russia, South Africa, China. They are also looking at setting up a rating system, which is outside of the big 3 players.
The coverage of your company, does it do sovereign rating or just corporate rating?
No, we are not currently doing sovereign rating for the purpose of publishing it for the outside world. We do the sovereign ratings because we rate a lot of companies and they have linkage to these economies. So we do our sovereign rating internally, but we don't publish it. Now that's where the challenge is, that the treasuries and the buyers and sellers of Forex, they essentially are locked up with 3 rating agencies' ratings. So what these alternative solutions has to first crack is how these alternative systems can be used to actually trade on sovereign bonds.
Okay, thank you. So before continuing, any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Actually, I have a couple of questions. Mr. Sankar first, because you've just finished your statement. Do you think that establishing a rating agency, a regional or local rating agency, would face a resistance from the big rating agencies, the big global rating agencies? Because this might, let's say, doubt their work or their opinion.
Credit rating is fiercely competitive industry, and the way the big 3 players protect their interest in every country, it's not a joke. So I would suspect that there would be serious resistance. I will give you one example of the resistance that we got in India. So Indian Prime Minister in his first BRICS meeting proposed that there should be a rating agency which is promoted by these countries other than US, and they assigned that mandate to a local bank called Exim Bank to evaluate how this can be set up. This bank in turn assigned this mandate to a subsidiary of a global big 3 to advise them, and the advice was very simple, that such a rating agency is not viable. So there are ways of creating serious resistance in that process, but there is also a natural resistance that this initiative will receive unless the treasuries of all the countries come together to accept these ratings for their decision-making process. The reason for that is that most of these internal policies of various central banks will integrate the rating of these 3 rating agencies. So there is a hard document which says that we'll invest in this bond if the rating is BBB and so. And sometimes central banks are extremely bureaucratic. So to change that name or change that rating symbol, it takes many, many years. So this is the challenge that certainly will be there. Given that we have faced these challenges, not just the sovereign ratings, but also the normal ratings, the normal credit ratings that we do, we faced a lot of challenges in the local market because we entered later. We have found our ground, we have been successful in showing that it is possible to develop an alternative mechanism. What my suggestion would be, if we have to create a solution, is that not to start with sovereign rating at the first place. You know, the starting point should be rating the medium-sized companies, then going to the large companies, then going to the banks and non-banking financial services companies, and then finally the sovereigns. You know, so that way you will collect data, you will build your tools and models, and as you collect more and more data, your tools will become more accurate. Your models, your statistical models will become more accurate. So this is something that is very much doable. Why it has not happened, why this disruption has not taken place, it's anybody's guess.
Did you ever feel you're swimming with the sharks?
Pardon, sir?
Did you ever feel you're swimming with the sharks?
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know, but yes, if you are, you know, 6 or 7 players globally, and you have 3 or 4 players who are very big, it's a challenge. But, you know, we also look at ratings as public good. You know, there's a change of perspective that at least internally, philosophically, we have developed, which is it is public good. So, so for us, changing the market and facilitating our customers and our investors takes a priority. So if you look at ratings market with that perspective, you would realize that, you know, while there are sharks that are there, market actually appreciates your effort as well. So we are trying to make some disruptions which other larger rating agencies have not done. For example, the bigger rating agencies or the more established rating agencies, there is no way of validating a rating report, you know, which sounds very, very peculiar. Why such a thing is not there? A lot of our Indian banks tell us that a customer submits a rating report and later it is found that that rating report is not genuine. There are 54,000 such companies which are rated. So for a bank to validate this, it's a humongous task. So what we have done, we have put a QR code on the rating certificate, which the banker can scan and instantly it tells him whether the rating report is genuine or not. We are the only rating agency in India who disseminate ratings through a mobile app. Globally, also very few rating agencies have done that. So I think while there are sharks, there are a lot of opportunities because this industry has not innovated enough. This industry has taken refuge to the fact that they have the comfort of regulators being on their side, and therefore there is a lot of scope for making new innovations and bringing in new technology.
Am I allowed to ask one more question or no, that's it?
Second round.
Okay, deal.
The question is, in the States, the shark, as he mentioned, in subprime crisis, 2008, there was a lot of criticism they don't have a regulator. 2 years later, in 2010, they established in the USA Office of Credit Rating, which is oversight 10 credit agencies, including the big 3, S&P, Fitch Rating, and Moody's. So why not the Arab countries or one Arab country or maybe the Union or other Arab country to establish the other way around, to establish the regulator, then the credit ratings. Similar as Dr. Adnan said about SWIFT. SWIFT is international shark, but there is BONA, there is an Egypt ACH. So why not building the same framework, the regulators, then the credit Arab agencies? Thank you. Maybe Dr. Adnan, thank you.
But then,
ايه اول شيء في فهم خاطئ عندنا كلنا ان once you are rated you are a very good risk. rating is only used when we reviewed any company and it is rated. We consider the review as part of the whole study. We are doing it on the borrower. But it does not mean that we give him the money without reviewing. And this is a very big issue. People always, they get confused. Number two, I fully agreed that we should have that. وكذلك, there is no companies will succeed unless the country and the regulators agree to accept them by force. Yani it should be a political decision within the Arab world to say that central banks, governments, you have to accept this company. Because other companies, which is right now internationally, they have been recognized by the central banks. I remember when I was in ABC, when you want to buy a marketable security bonds in the markets, they will give you a criteria saying that it should be AA rated from one of the three companies. We want to have the same thing applied to the Arab rating agency. That means the central banks, the banks, everybody. And it should be by force that all the companies, banks should be rated by this company. Bank cannot say that, no, sorry, I don't want the rating. No, by force you have. Then you will collect a lot of information. By the way, it's not Egypt also. Turkey, when they have the problems recently with the European countries and with the Americans, they say that we want also a rating agency, and I think they have already started now. Thank you.
Dr. Adnan, I have a question, please. Well, I'm not sure how to describe this, but three words, I can use them sometimes to question the rating agency's position, maybe. Integrity. Of course, we can question also transparency, but corruption is also there. So if we come over those three words, we might sometimes evaluate the recent situation and come up with a new, maybe, result to be encouraged to launch the Arab or regional rating agency.
I agreed with you, Raja, but you know that the rating agencies, people who come to you as institution, they sit with us, they take all the information, they review it, and then there is a committee completely segregated from the people which you saw. And maybe the committee, they will issue a decision completely different from the recommendation coming from the technical side. Yani, I saw it when I was in Al-Baraka. Yani, the people who came, they were having certain recommendations, but when it went to the committee, these committees are completely separate. They are not part of the same, and they take the decision based on their own opinion. It's like what we do in the banking. When I have a borrower, I'm a credit officer, I do the application. Who approves the transaction is a credit committee on the top of the management. They decide, and if the senior credit officer say no, whether the president or the chairman, he want to approve it, it's gone, khalas. I think that, you know, the rating agencies, we should see what is the negative and the positive in the international companies, and we try to avoid the negative and strengthen the positive in these companies. But by the way, they did a very good job. So, I mean, the rating agencies, if you take, they have been in operation for 150 years. Standard & Poor's last 2 or 3 years, they complete 150 years. They have been in operation for many years, and they went up and down. We have a crisis. Yeah, I will continue to have the crisis. Thank you.
So, Dr. Audi, you mentioned swimming with the sharks, and Dr. Sankar, you mentioned that there is always room for local players And we should start even by rating SMEs, which is something we lack in the Arab world. Actually, my next question goes for Dr. Tariq and Dr. Sankar. I will start with Dr. Tariq. في ناس يعني إذا بدنا نقول الانتقادات إنه على اللي كنت عم تحكيها حضرتك على قصة كيف الاسسمنت او تقدير الريسك بمصر. في ناس ممكن تكون بالجهه المقابله عم بتقول طب وات اف الوكاله الائتمانيه بمصر ممكن تكون خاضعه لبوليتيكال ليتس سي ريسك او ضغط سياسي. كيف فينا يعني تو انشور او نتاكد من انه الوكالات الائتمانيه الناشونال او المصريه حرة من الضغوط السياسية أو ما يمارس عليها ضغوط سياسية مثل ما بيتهم بالبيج ريتنج ايجنسيز إنه هي بايست أو منحازة؟
هو الحقيقه النشاط في مصر عندنا في الريتنج النشاط لسه يعني في اوله، يعني احنا ما وصلناش لمرحله ان احنا يبقى في تدخل او مفيش تدخل.
عم نحكي هايبوثيتيكلي يعني انه ليتس سي 2022 صار القرار، بس ليتس سي مصر قررت انه فعلا تنفذ هذا الشيء السنه الجاي.
ان مصر ايه؟
مصر قررت فعلا تعمل وكالة الائتمان السنة اللي بعدها، يعني حتى لو ما تنفذت بس عم نحكي هايبوثيتيكلي انه شو اللي بيضمن انه وكالات الائتمان تكون عن جد عندها كريديبيليتي او مصداقية او حرة من الضغوط السياسية وما بتقلل من الريسك لحتى تجذب المستثمرين.
ما هو حضرتك احنا يعني انا سمعت الحقيقه الدكتور عدنان مقتنع بكلامه جدا، الحقيقه بيتكلم اللي انا عايز اقوله، يعني هو الدكتور عدنان لازم يكون في جوين فينشر مع شريك اجنبي، لان دي محتاجه نوها. وانا بقول لحضرتك في عندنا شركتين حاليا في مصر، واحده شغاله وواحده هتشتغل، لكن عشان نكون في مصداقيه وتكون اللي هي تقيم السوفرين ديت دي لازم يكون لها يعني باع طويل في التقييم. لكن احنا التدخل الحكومي عندنا مش موجود في المؤسسات الماليه ومؤسسات التقييم، وهيئه الرقابه الماليه نشطه جدا في ان هي بتشرف على هذه الهيئات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هو طارق في عندنا الريتنج وجوين فينشر جوين فينشر مع مؤسسه عالميه موديز او S&P اللي هو ماسكها الدكتور عمرو.
بس هو حضرتك كان في كلام في كلام عن
وبقى لها كذا سنه قايمه.
ايوه انا بقول لحضرتك في شركتين
وجوين فينشر يعني مش هي
مش في شركتين، هو في شركه.
لا انا بتكلم على الشركه اللي فيها الدكتور عمرو، دي بقى لها عمرو حسنين.
أيوة.
دي بقى لها سنين وجوين فينشر لموديز او S&P.
بالظبط يا فندم، انا بقول لحضرتك في لازم يكون يعني اي شركه يكون فيها شريك اجنبي، دي التجربه بتنجح.
ما هي دي فعلا كده.
بس ما بتعملش سوفرنج، يعني ما بتعملش ريتنج للسوفرنج ديت.
لا بتعمل ريتنج للشركات اللي عندنا.
للشركات انا بتكلم حضرتك ان احنا يهمنا دلوقتي الريتنج اللي بيحصل للدول اللي هو بتتاثر بيه البنوك. يعني النهارده التقارير اللي طلعت اخيرا للثلاث مؤسسات العالميه انا شايف دي بيعمل بلبله في السوق وبيعمل يعني.
لا ما هو طبيعي لما بيحصل داون جريدنج هيعمل لك
بس يعني الحاجات دي المفروض يعني عشان هدف معين قياس قدره الدوله على سداد الالتزامات، ولكن في ناس بتفهمها بمعنى تاني ان هم غير متخصصين وبتنشر في الجرايد. فالحاجات دي كلها لازم تاخذ في الاعتبار ان ما يكونش ان ده متخصص معين هو اللي بيقرا الريتنج وبيفهمه، لكن الجمهور العام لا يمكن هيفهم ان بقينا سلبيه، نظره سلبيه ونظره وبي الكلام ده كله بيدي اثر عكسي على المناخ الاستثماري في مصر.
اكيد بس هو كشركه ريتنج لازم بيشوف وجهه نظره، ممكن يبقى له اغراض معينه، انما هو الصح ان هو بيعمل ريتنج للدوله او للشركه، فده شيء طبيعي يعني.
حضرتك
sorry, and if you allow me again, as an SME and as a potential victim of a rating agency, again, the difference between the past and what could happen in the future, what I mentioned is the instantaneous. Because if you rated me 3 months ago, you don't know what will happen in 6 months. Okay? So today what I'm saying, the technology would allow you to have this instantaneous, and I would do the similarity with the KYC subject that was mentioned. Let me tell you just two small stories. We were in Beirut, UAB made a convention in early March. Okay, just 1 week before the FATF report went out. Okay, on the 20th of March, I received an email from my bank in UK. I can't read it, but saying Mr. Richard Michael, our record shows that you are resident of UAE. That you remember in the last FATF, UAE was put on the grey list. If you have changed residency, please tell us. If not, you have 60 days to close your account. Okay, just to give an example, that they saw a French national with Lebanese nationality living in UAE, having an account in UK, sounded fishy for them. Okay, I can give you another example in a bank in UAE where I have my personal banking since 1998. I was opening the account for my company in December 2022. They said, we have a problem. I said, why? I said, the compliance came with a remark. Your wife, who has the account in the same bank, is married to a PEP. I said, I don't think I'm a PEP. I said, not no, somebody else. I said, you are telling me that my wife is married to somebody else who is a PEP. Again, why? I don't know. But these things happen. What I'm saying, the idea is excellent as long as we are in an era talking about financial inclusion. So to use these tools and vehicles to make sure that, I mean, a bank needs clients. I mean, banks are here to do business with clients, with SMEs, to make sure that we use it in the proper way, okay, to have the right information and to give the right service to the right people. I mean, again, technology is good, but it's like the weapon. You can use it to protect people or to kill people. So let's make sure we use it to protect and not to kill.
Yes, actually, my next question to you, Mr. Richard, was how, now with the revolution of artificial intelligence applications and big data, how can these technologies improve the credit rating process, not from the perspective of companies, from the perspective of credit rating agencies themselves? يعني, would we witness in the future like fintech rating, for example? Because I was reading, this idea is not like very far. كتير ناس هلا عم بيفكروا انه to start rating the fintech companies.
As long as it is guaranteed by, like I say, a regional rating company. But I cannot trust all. How can you make sure that this fintech is a trustable one? Again, there has to be a regulator or a regional body, whether it's foreign partners or not, but there should be somebody who has the authority to say that yes, I can somehow, let's say to 95% accuracy, say that this information is correct and it has been validated and vetted properly. Even if you use technology, you still need an analyst at the end of the day to confirm this decision. You cannot leave it to a machine to say black or white.
Zuhur. Sorry. حدام بيه. لا, I want to comment. يعني, if we take the example of Credit Suisse, last year it was rated BBB, and the interest on the bond was 3-4%. After 6 months, I'm talking about Credit Suisse, the rating was misleading because last year in 2022, the rating of the bank was BBB, and the interest on the bond was almost 3.5% per annum. So after 6 months, the bank was going to bankrupt. And this was, I don't think that the rating agency did their job in a good manner. So, and this, if the Central Bank of Swiss or UBS didn't buy the bank, all the bonds could vanish, like what happened in the perpetual bond. They lost 17 billion francs Swiss. So what I mean is that sometimes the rating agency, like it happened in 2008, Lehman Brothers, and so we don't have to rely 100% on the rating agencies.
So I think we're all stressing on the same point, which is the governance side. So technological side is very important. However, the governance side is what matters at the end. My next question goes to Dr. Adnan. What do you think are the challenges now to materialize this idea that you proposed 10 years ago? شو يعني هلا قد ايه صعب هلا نشوف هذا الشيء اللي اقترحته من 10 سنين عن جد عم يتحقق؟ شو الستبس او شو الابروتش؟
And I think that Union Arab banks, they should be responsible to filter it within the central banks and within the government, because they've done a very good job, and I believe that they can do this. SWIFT, the payment, which they have already done now, and the rating agency. The rating agencies, we should not confuse ourselves. When we say that we need a rating agencies, not to just rate the companies and the banks within the country, because that is okay so long that it is within the banking activities, they are acceptable. But normally we ask for the rating because if we want to borrow from the outside, we use Standard & Poor, or we use the Moody's or the other Fitch. At least the other banks or the lenders, they will say, oh, this borrower is rated by one of the international. We want to reach to that level. Because if you are just talking about an Egyptian company and they are rating Egyptian banks and Egyptian companies, this is for the local market. That will not create a lot of hassles. But we want a company which can rate it, and it should be and to be recognized by the outsiders.
So it's a question of credibility.
Credibility and by force, because of the central banks. Because the central banks, they are regulators. They can put emphasis on companies as well on the banks, saying that once you give us your annual report, you also give us your rating report.
Actually, on the credibility level, how credible do you think the domestic rating agencies in India are compared to the big ones? What are the challenges on the credibility level? What if there's a discrepancy between big players and the domestic one? Who's more credible? Up.
Yeah, I think so we have the Indian experience is that the credibility really does not depend on whether they are the larger global players or the smaller players. Out of the 6 rating agencies, one of the older player is considered credible, and out of the 3 newer rating agencies, one of them is considered more credible than the others. The credibility depends on the analytical standards and the models, but it also depends a lot on the business philosophy of the company, because the ratings, as you are aware, that it has inherent conflict of interest under the issuer pays model. So the company has to have a lot of internal controls and internal governance checks and balances to ensure that the users can trust such ratings. So for any new player, one thing has to be very clear, that they cannot compromise on the internal governance standards for investors to trust those their ratings.
So before wrapping up, any more questions? Thank you so much for joining us, for your insightful remarks, and looking forward to host you again in future events. Thank you so much.